So to get us started, hi everyone. My name is Carrie Brosnan. I am a natural resources planner with the Franklin County Natural Resources Conservation District. I use she, her pronouns. Um, and today we are here to chat about economic viability and business planning tools for maple producers. And yeah, this program is part of our Maple Producer Workshop series. This is our second year hosting this program. We want to thank our funder, the Lake Champlain Basin Program, for funding these events and giving us the opportunity to share these resources with folks. As part of this program, we are offering site visits to maple producers to talk about AMPs or acceptable management practices. And so if you are interested in talking about water quality, stream crossings, forest roads, etc., feel free to reach out to me or the Franklin County NRCD in general. We are also, we have a skidder bridge rental program through the Franklin County NRCD, and those skidder bridges are available for rent for $100 a month. So if you're interested in that as well, feel free to send me an email. Lastly, at the end of this session, I will put a link in the chat for a survey. If participants wouldn't mind taking a few minutes to fill out the survey, that would be greatly appreciated. But with that, I think I will pass it over to Calley Hastings with the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board Farm and Forest Viability Program. And then we'll have a few minutes for questions after that presentation as well.
Sounds good. Sorry, I'm in a cave. There's not much more I can do about it. All the lights are on in here. Hi, everybody. Calley Hastings with the Farm and Forest Viability Program. I just want to say up front that I have a little baby that is home with me today because daycare is closed because of sickness, and he's with his grandmother, but at some point I'm going to have to disappear and feed him. I'll still be on screen, but just with my camera off. So Dana will potentially swap in during that time, and we might come back to me depending on how all the timing plays out. And thank you for being flexible on that. And I would love, actually, before we start, Kathy, and I'm not sure the name on the other person, but if you were able to just introduce yourselves, if you are willing to, and if not, no worries, but just curious if you have a maple operation and maybe where you are, and I don't know, just if there's anything specifically that you're really hoping to hear about in this presentation, would love to hear that too.
Hi, Callie. I'm Kathy Sandville. I actually work for the Orleans County District. And my husband's in the process of starting, he's been working on a sugar bush, thinning out our trees and putting in an arch to start next year. So I'm just here for information to absorb, and yeah, just like information. Thank you.
We can do that. Great, thanks.
Thanks.
And I'm not sure who the other person is, but if you want to hop on, give you a second if you'd like to. Otherwise, we'll keep going. All right, I'll go into it. And Mel, do you have a sugar bush at all, or is this more just for work? Okay. Great. So I'm with the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, which is an organization in Montpelier. We have about 50 people that are in the organization, and we have a whole bunch of folks working in housing and conservation, as is in the name. And then the program that I manage is the Farm and Forest Viability Program. And Dana's going to take it from here. I'll be back on later.
Hi. Okay. Well, that was a good introduction. So we are my organization. I work for the University of Vermont Extension. I'm part of the agricultural business team, and I coordinate outreach on our farm viability and forest business programs. VHCB funds our organization along with some others around the state to provide business planning and other like business coaching and related programming. So I will present on the work that we do, how we work with sugar makers, how we work with landowners in the state, and the different kinds of services we offer. So I will share my screen then and start a presentation. And just let me know. Are you seeing?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay. So I just kind of talked about what I do. I work across forest, farm, and maple programming at UVM Extension. And so this is the totality of what Extension agricultural business does. We have our forest business programming, maple business, farm viability. All three of those work on business planning and work with maple producers in some capacity. And then the Maple Business Program does some additional research, national economics and business education, that sort of thing. And we also have our dairy herd management program, and then some water quality business planning and analysis programming that we do. And today I'm going to talk about our forest business program. We do work with a lot of maple producers through forest business and maple business. And like I said, sometimes the farm viability team takes clients, like we all kind of work together. It just depends really on who has capacity and is best suited to work individually with a specific maple producer. So we work with businesses in Vermont's maple forest and wood products industries, providing business education and planning assistance. So that is, one-on-one business planning and coaching, business clinics and skill development, peer learning. We have a Vermont forest and wood products business roundtable, and then we periodically offer workshops and classes, and we have a lot of online resources too. And so I'm going to go through all of these. So our one-on-one business coaching, that is business plan development. Business plans are usually longer term, generally 1 or 2 years, or could be more if it's a succession or transfer plan. And then our clinics are shorter. Usually it's like an hour or an hour and a half meeting, maybe a couple of meetings for coaching or grant assistance. And so some of what we do is financials, preparation and analysis, like cost of production and break-even analysis, marketing support, technical assistance, referrals. We offer some limited grant assistance, but we don't write grants or submit grants on a business's behalf, but we can work with a business to help prepare financial statements and other elements that might be needed for a grant application. So one example of the work that we do is Leamington Maple up in Canaan, Vermont. We provided Leamington Maple with comprehensive multi-year business planning services, including help with loan applications, setting up a new limited liability corporation, developing an operating agreement, and other technical issues related to developing the new business partnership and their sugaring operation. And this is Ivan Doyen. We did a tour up there as part of our forest business roundtable. So, our programming kind of works together, or kind of fits together in different ways. And they did receive a $35,000 working lands grant that helped them develop their operation by bringing power to their sugar house. Some of these, you'll see the mention of the amounts of grant funding that they received. It's this presentation. I've used pieces of it before. And because the working lands grants are coming up, like currently there's a deadline for the business enhancement grant. It's early next month. But so we do talk about sometimes the way that we help businesses access grant funding or obtain grant funding. So White Rock Farm and Lumber in Randolph, they are an 8th-generation operation. They have a dairy, a sawmill, a hay, and a maple syrup operation. And we worked with them on business succession. And one goal was to determine the financial feasibility of sawmill expansion as they were transitioning to the next generation. So we worked with them on cost of production analysis, break-even estimates, and then on their, succession planning. And they did receive a $250,000 working lands grant to increase their mill's processing capacity build a new building, expand their mill operation, and hire more employees. So then we also offer, as I mentioned, business clinics and skill development. And this is usually the first engagement with our team. We'll schedule a short business clinic if you need help with a grant application, or you have a business idea, or you're just interested to know more about our services and how we might be able to work with you. And the sessions are designed to be flexible so that the time is spent on topics that are most important to the client. And again, these are short focus meetings to work on whatever is important to you. So if that's reviewing a business plan or looking at your cash flow, reviewing a grant or loan application, doing some cost analysis, etc. And the idea is to help you better understand your finances and make more informed decisions about your business. We also do cash flow and enterprise analysis. These are also short term, but a little more in-depth than just a business coaching session. And they're typically designed to address an immediate need. So cash flow analysis, and cash flow is, projecting money coming in and money going out, is used to assess the financial impact of a business change over time. Or enterprise analysis, which is revenue and expenses budgeted in relation to one specific enterprise for one time period. So some producers might have an immediate need for a business analysis that projects results from like one or more specific management changes, or that analyzes the feasibility of one or more distinct enterprises within the larger business operation. And so in these cases, this less intensive, less comprehensive than like a full business plan. But these are some different ways that we can work with a business to help them. Then we also have the Forest and Wood Products Business Roundtable. Participants include maple businesses, timber harvesters, mills, wood manufacturers, artisans, and value-added wood producers. And so this is a peer advisory group. They meet, it used to meet monthly. This latest iteration, there are going to be 6 to 8 meetings over the course of the next year. We just had the first one last month at LSF Farm and Lumber Mill up in Fletcher. They actually also have a small maple operation there. And so the meetings explore a variety of topics and are really designed around what the peer group is interested in hearing about or learning about. Discussion topics could include financial management, sales, staffing issues, planning, HR, operational efficiencies. It's also relationship building and an opportunity to talk as a group and hear from other peers. And it's facilitated by 2 folks, Dave Redmond, who's the former director of the Woods program with the Northern Forest Center, and a woman named Gwen Zakov, and she's a Vermont Forest Products Association lobbyist and attorney. So then our maple programming, we have a maple sap project where we work one-on-one with landowners, pair them with a business advisor on forest land assessments and financial cost analysis to guide a landowner or a business through a decision about starting a sap-only enterprise. And this was a multi-year program funded by the USDA, and now VHCB is funding it over this next year. So we're working specifically with Vermont landowners and producers. And one participant example is Ethan Tapper of Bear Island LLC up in Bolton. So we worked with him through the Maple Sap project to determine feasibility of an operation through the maple business side of our programming. And then we worked with him on business planning through the Forest Business Program. So he wanted advice in a more formal process for looking at developing a small sugar bush on his 20 acre parcel of land. We determined he had about 700 taps possible, and then Ethan decided to move directly to processing and establish a full sugaring operation. So we helped him develop financial statements for the business, and those were used for a working lands grant proposal that he submitted and received to help establish his maple sap collection system. And then we completed in-depth business planning with him so that he would have a comprehensive business plan for his sugaring operation and some other related activities that he engages in. And so some of the, business planning included bookkeeping, setup, financial statements, and a comprehensive plan. We also have online resources, both at our agricultural business main website, and then maplemanager.org is a website that we have been managing for many years. It was developed through grant funding, and we continue to update it. There are an array of tools and resources on it: forestry best management practices, business and legal guides. There's a whole searchable resource library. So you can put in keywords and pull up all sorts of information. The calculators and tools include sap hauling, profit and loss, labor worksheet calculators. We have sugar bush lease agreement templates. We're almost done developing it's a maple sap assessment checklist. We have it currently as an Excel file, but it will soon be completely usable document where it's a tool where you're entering information to make financial and other projections and calculations. And you can create a login and password, and you can save reports on the website. We also have a YouTube channel. There are lots of videos there, presentations from different educational presentations we've done over the years, workshops, that sort of thing. Then we have our Maple Market Research and Outreach programming. We're doing survey work. There are components of education. We're issuing publications. We have some short courses. We're actually just finishing up a maple marketing webinar series. The final one is next week, and we'll offer that again next year. And next year we'll be offering a one-day in-person maple marketing class, probably in the summer of 2026. So the marketing, publications, policy research, and some risk and adaptation case studies that I'm actually working on with maple producers. We currently just opened the 2025 U.S. Maple Producer Survey, and we're encouraging people to complete it. The research and information that we glean from the survey will help us understand and explore trends and issues that are important to the success of maple producers nationally. And we will be sharing that information out next year once we collect data, analyze it, and be able to make some recommendations going forward. And I will put the link to this survey in the chat, and we encourage folks to fill it out. It'll be open for a few months. It just opened a few days ago. Another piece of our Maple Sustainability Indicators programming. It's kind of looking at sustainability within the maple sector. And then just reiterating about working as another grant preparation. We can help people prepare financial statements. Business planning is a great way to be prepared to apply for grants. A lot of grant opportunities would like to see that kind of information in a grant application. So again, we can help prepare financial statements and other related information. We do not write grants for businesses or submit them on a business's behalf. And we've helped, 14 forest products businesses receive over $1.4 million in grant funding. And that's it. If you have any questions, there are QR codes there for 2 intake forms. One is for if you're interested in business planning assistance, and another is if you're interested in a forest land or cost of production assessment through the Maple Sap business program. And with that, I'm going to end.
Great. Thank you so much. We have a couple of minutes to take questions. Mel, why don't you go for it?
Sure. So I was just so curious about the slide with the grant assistance, because it looked like there was some maybe access road work being done. And is that kind of work eligible for working lands grants? Just because we do a lot of clean water work, and we've been talking about the acceptable management practices for a couple of years now. So I'd just be curious, like, what is a way to successfully help a sugar maker build access roads that are in alignment with the AMPs, but where they don't have to foot that entire cost?
Yeah, that is something that you could apply for through working lands. Again, the business enhancement grants, that deadline is coming up. I think it's like December 10th or something like that. So it might be a little late for this year. But that is part of what the grants would be willing to fund. It's Claire Salerno is the main contact for working lands. And I can, while Calley's talking, I can put that information in the chat, and you should reach out to her, and I could put the link to the website. So right now it's the business enhancement grants are open. And yeah, absolutely. Work related to developing a sugar bush is something that's fundable.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There you go.
Sure. Yeah, I was just going to see, are there any other questions from folks? If not, I'll pass it over to you. All right, I'd say go for it.
Okay, and also hop in with a question if you had it and you want to interrupt me. There's no problem there. Yeah, okay, so that was awesome. And thank you for the slides, Dana. That was really helpful. So I will say all the organizations and resources can be very confusing. So part of what I try to do is explain, not in too many boring details, but like how we're connected and also how we're separate. So just kind of going back when I was introducing myself, I'm with the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, separate organization. I manage the Farm and Forest Viability Program. We contract with 5 key partners. UVM Extension, who Dana is with, is one of those partners, but we also work with NOFA Vermont, so they're the Northeast Organic Farming Association, the Interrail Center, the Center for an Ag Economy, which is in Hardwick, Land for Good, who specializes in transfer and succession planning, and that it? Yeah, so I already said UVM Extension. This is always my test of like, how is my brain functioning today? Did I get all 5? Those are all 5 of them. And so each of them actually has a set of business advisors doing farm and forest viability work on the ground. So if you hear the term viability program, it's kind of coming from this overarching program at VHCB, but any of these partners could be doing essentially the same program on the ground. UVM is the only one who has a specific forest program. Everyone else does farm and food. As Dana mentioned, maple can be under farm or forest, so you kind of have all the options. And it's just a question of capacity, finding you the right advisor, location, et cetera, to meet your needs. So for anyone who's interested in enrolling in the viability program, which is out of the things that Dana mentioned, kind of carved out is the business planning program. So our kind of bread and butter is in-depth business planning and transfer/succession planning. So if someone was interested in that program, they would have a call with me, like an enrollment call. I'd go over the details of the program, some of the things I'm talking about here, and ask them about their needs, get a pretty in-depth history of the farm or forest business and what they're looking for, and see if it's a good fit for our program. If it's not, I would connect them with another resource that probably would be. One thing to know is that there's so many resources out there for farm, particularly farm businesses, but there are more and more for forest as well. Again, maple's great because you can kind of get access to both. So if you might not be the right fit for a specific program, there's probably something else out there that could still help you. So I'm happy to connect folks with what I know about. If you did enroll in our program, you'd fill out an application, which is basically just to gather basic facts about your business. Submit it, pay a $75 enrollment fee for our program. Otherwise, it's free. And then we'd have the enrollment call, and then you'd get matched with an advisor and you'd start working. The model, which is a little bit unique kind of across the country, a lot of people actually look to this model to inspire what they're doing in their states, but you get matched with your advisor. They're usually a combination of coming out to the sugar woods or the kitchen table, wherever it is, or Zoom or phone, kind of a lot of it's hybrid at this point, and working with you through the business planning process. So for business planning, it's basically a 2-year program, roughly, kind of depending on when you enter into the program. But if you already get into the program now, you'd be working until this spring on a business plan. And that includes a SWOT analysis, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to the business, marketing and sales plan, management analysis, kind of risk assessment, which could be anything from what's going on with the markets, what's risky in the markets, to extreme weather, things that are going on, and a very strong focus on the financials. So no matter what skill level you come into the program at, we want you to leave with a higher level of skills related to financial understandings and just ability to do projections, read your balance sheet, understand your profit and loss statements. Sometimes it's, we're just starting with getting a system set up for record keeping and bookkeeping, so you can actually get that information to then make decisions on and project outwards. People come in from all different places. They could be using QuickBooks for 10 years, or they're using a hand ledger, or it's the shoebox of the receipts and you're sending it into your accountant at the end of the year. Any of that's fine. We'll just work with you to get the system set up that's going to be the best situation for you. It doesn't have to be high tech. A lot of people don't want to do that. And it doesn't make sense, but we'll really focus on that, especially in the beginning in our work. Because with our advisors, they don't want to be like working with you on any of these things until everyone is on the same page with whatever the financial reality is. So we're not going to be assisting you in thinking about scaling up if you're creating a product that isn't priced properly and you're losing money every time you sell a unit. So we want to be thinking big picture, long-term planning, skill building. That's kind of what our program is about, and helping the business figure out what the goals are for the business, for their lives, and helping you kind of get a roadmap to get there. So the business plan is essentially laying out the roadmap to get there and kind of planning for the future, even though not that we think planning works per se, like your plans change all the time. Life changes all the time, but having it kind of written on paper and having kind of contingency plans too, like if this happens, we could switch to this, or if it's a drought year, here's our backup plan. So definitely more and more, we're talking about backup plans and contingency plans with working lands businesses, because it's pretty essential. So with the model for the program, we got your advisor, and you're meeting every roughly 2 to 4 weeks, I would say, throughout the planning season. A lot of sugars will come in and they'll really crank out some work for the first 4 or 5 months, like now until, well, that's not 4 or 5 months, but maybe they start in July or August, crank it out to like January, February, disappear for a couple months, come back online. So we're very used to working with businesses that have some seasonality and need to kind of just press pause on the planning process for a couple months. That being said, we're still trying to keep some consistency in meetings, and, it is like this year-long process, more or less. So we, a good fit for our program is a business that is ready to commit some time and energy. There are businesses who aren't ready for that level of work, which is totally fine. And then they're a better fit for maybe like a business clinic or some short-term advising. This is kind of like the biggest kind of business planning package we offer, and that you honestly get the most out of, because you have a lot more of your business advisor's time, and they're like committed to you in that 2-year planning process. So first year, most intense. Second year, it's lighter touch. It's usually meeting like once every quarter to review how the financials are looking and see how the implementation of the business plan is going and what's changed and what needs shifting. And that's kind of the completion of it. We do offer the transfer and succession planning. So anyone who's looking at exiting, selling, passing on to the next generation, which is happening a lot at this point in Vermont, just with people aging, dairy farmers aging, dairy farmers with sugar bushes. That's a very core group, I would say, for transfer or succession planning, but this is for any business out there that's looking at those options. So we work with a business to think about wills, estate planning, retirement planning, family living budgets, who's living in what house on the property, and what's that going to look like 20 years from now? How is the current business functioning from a financial perspective? What do you need to plan out for? If a younger generation is taking on, do they have the capacity and the skills to take it on? Or do we need to focus on like upskilling for them? So it can be very complicated doing transfer and succession work. There tends to be families involved, family dynamics. There can be some tricky decision-making points, like passing on of control, all that. So we do create the container for that process. And we also often bring in ag mediation, which is another free service in Vermont. Ag mediation is amazing. They do work with Maple, and they can come in and they can kind of focus on communication issues or conflict in any kind of business situation, but it comes up a lot in transfers. And they do that work with the people involved, and then we can kind of focus on the planning part of it. They can also help with lots of other things like debt issues, dealing with credit card collections, dealing with loans if you're falling past due on those. So I just would recommend looking them up and also seeing what their services are. So yeah, the transfer succession one as well, that's like roughly a 2-year process. But I think as Dana was mentioning, that could be anywhere from as short as a year to as long as 10 years in some cases, because it's just not a linear process. So those are the core ones. Let me just pause a second, scan my brain. Enrollment is open throughout the year. The only thing that can be an issue is just capacity. If you come in during January, our business advisors are usually cranking during that time of year, so we might not be able to meet with you for a couple months. Ideally, people would enroll, spring, summer, or like early fall to kind of get that full, as many months of the business planning as they can, because the business plans get finished up by the spring is kind of the calendar. And yeah, I think those are my core piece of information. I will drop the link to the website that we have, as well as our applications that you can fill out. And I'm here to answer any questions ever for anybody. So if there's a farm or a business that's like slightly interested but has no idea if they fit, they can just call me. I can talk it through. We do have some eligibility requirements. Our program is geared towards established businesses, the Farm and Forest Viability Program. So having been in business for 2 years, owning and managing the business for 2 years, grossing 15,000 or more, and being a resident in Vermont, and the business needs to be in Vermont. So if you're more of a beginning farmer or maple sugar maker, we can fit you with beginning farmer support as well through other programs. Also, our forest program is a little bit more flexible in what stage of business they work with. There's just so many with farms that we try to specialize in established business. The forest kind of works with everybody. So I could talk with anybody about all those pieces and see if anyone's eligible. And I can also send out a referral guide to the NRCD folks, so you have a sense too, like who makes a good fit for our program. And yeah, happy to answer any questions that might have come up. I will say we've worked with, I don't know, probably thousands of clients, but about every year, 100 plus clients every year. We've been doing it for 25 years, and we have like 10 to 15 advisors throughout the state doing this work. So it's a well-worn program model. And because I get all the evaluations back at the end of the year, and I would say kind of the core pieces that people talk about being of value of this program is the consistency, the kind of accountability in a positive way. Like you have somebody to meet with every month, and you're going to sit down at the table and focus on the business, not just working in the business, and look at the hard questions like, are we making money or not? What are we going to be doing next year? What do we want to do 10 years from now? These are questions everyone's usually batting around in their head, but it can be really hard to sit down and actually work through those. So we support in that. And our advisors have just seen so many businesses, and they can really like lend a lot of perspective to that, because most businesses are going through the same kind of core issues. So yeah, people really value that. And we also just act as a big resource for many things. It's your business advising, but also connecting you with, it could be the other resources at UVM. It could be a website designer, helping with branding, someone to help with the production end of sugaring or your trees. So we are really connected to everyone in the state and want to bring in as many resources as possible to every business out there. I'll leave it at that.
Great. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions? Mel, go for it.
Hello. Sorry to be asking a ton of questions. I am curious, just you spoke about risk assessments and how extreme weather might be included in that. And I'm curious, what does business planning with increasingly extreme weather events and increasingly frequent weather events look like for a sugar bush?
Like, what would the options be of what people would be looking at?
Yes.
Well, I think everyone's really different. I think it could look like many different things. It could be something that people really dig into, and businesses could also combine their work. Like if they were at UVM Extension, they could also connect with NOFA Vermont, who's kind of spearheading a lot of extreme weather climate adaptation planning. We're actually doing like a big session for all our business planners tomorrow on how to integrate climate adaptation planning to business planning, because it's just become more and more of a thing. So we will start doing that on a more regular basis for all our plans, but there'll also be the option to, like, if you really want to focus more energy, you could then add on working with NOFA to do additional planning with them, because they're going to be like they're going to have a bunch of expertise in that area. So I will tell you after tomorrow exactly what that will look like, because I don't know. But I've seen it kind of appear in many different ways, whether it's, okay, if this is a short season, then are we adding on a different enterprise during the summer? Like, are we actually going to use our land? Like, some people have farmland too, and so they're like, I want to add beef to it and add some off maple season income. Or a lot of people are looking at, well, I'm making a little bit less maybe some years, and I want to get a higher margin, so they're investigating doing value, the value added products themselves, or creating their own branding and marketing and going retail. That's a really, really common one for maple producers, and also one that is great to dig deeply into, because even though you might get higher margins if you go that direction, you also have all the work that goes into the sales and marketing and branding and logos, and you're managing a whole other part of the business. So I think people are often looking at, are there other ways to buffer the seasonality and the changes that we're seeing? And then of course there would be, like, within the forest management, we, in our farm viability, forest viability business planning program, we're not meant to focus a ton on the production piece, but we can always bring in outside resources. So we have a technical assistance budget as well when you're in the program. So you have access to several $100s every year in the program to bring in outside experts for any question that could come up as well.
I would add on to that, like some of the work that I'm doing in my role with its different grant funding, some of that maple markets, like the risk adaptation case studies. We are talking with maple producers who have gone through a disruption event, and then documenting how it is that they made changes to their operation. So that is one piece of it too. Like, folks are changing the layout of their sugar bush to make it easier to access. If there's a mass event, having some redundancy in their systems, like extra chainsaws around, or a generator so that they can run their vacuum, gather sap, and boil if there's power outage. Changing the way they run their main lines and lateral lines, like how they're connected in some way. So if a lot of trees come down on those lines, they won't be as easily destroyed. They might just be flattened. And so then you'd come in and clear and reset them. So that's kind of some of the work that we're doing. And it does tie into some of this planning work, because it's all, thinking holistically about your business and trying to make sure you're accounting for some of these contingencies, right? So whether that's like some extra equipment on hand, and what's that going to cost to store, maintain, just have that, or if you're changing the layout of a sugar bush, what that looks like in terms of extra labor and materials investment to do something like that. Monitoring systems are big too, and gaining. They are expensive to install, or can be, but they can also save a lot of production time, like being able to more quickly identify where you have vacuum leaks, or where a tree has come down and ripped out some lateral lines or something like that. So those kinds of things we're working with producers on to help identify, and that can absolutely be part of the business planning as well. Like, how much would it cost if you want to outfit your like 2,500 tap operation with monitors, and what monitoring system would be best for your scale, and just things like that. So I think it's feeding into business like planning and development process.
One more piece I just wanted to circle back on with the grants too. So we do offer light touch assistance with grants because there's a huge need for it. A lot of people would prefer that we just write grants, but we can't because it would totally cannibalize our program. But we do, more than anything, I think, try to help businesses think strategically about grants because it is a highly competitive landscape and it's gotten harder and harder and there's less and less money. So part of what we want to do is work with people on are you even eligible to apply? Is your project eligible? Do you have a business plan? Can you make the argument for why this is a great investment and you should be awarded the grant? All those things. Is it worth your time? Do you have the skills? Do you need to get the skills? Is that worth it? And a lot of times the answer is no, and we're actually helping people get to the no answer so they don't go down that path and put all their time and energy into grants, and a lot of times get a no from the grant, and then that's very disappointing and is often a pretty big emotional roller coaster because you're delaying all these projects hoping money will come in and then it doesn't come in. An ideal, I think, grant applicant is somebody who could afford it anyway through profits in the business, or they could get a loan easily. That kind of is a statement of the health of the business and also the fact that they could do it regardless. What's not great is if someone's like, I have to have this or I can't go on, basically, because that's often a sign like that the business isn't like structured in a way that's highly functioning or is profitable or is financially viable long term. So I just wanted to mention that about grants because I think it's really easy for lots of conversations to get focused on grants and have that kind of take over what I think is a lot more valuable, which is business planning, financial literacy, building out your skills. A lot of businesses that we work with too, I mean, a lot of working lands businesses, people come into it because they're excellent at making syrup, or they're great at raising the best beef cattle or making the best milk. Their craft is usually pretty finely tuned, and people are often wanting to increase their financial skills, and sometimes it's also marketing and sales skills. So we see that as like a really core part of what we can offer as well.
Great, thank you. And it's really cool to hear about that meeting tomorrow. So I hope to hear more in the future about how climate resilience is sort of intertwined with business planning. It's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give a couple of seconds for any folks in the Zoom to ask any other questions. And if not, I have a question.
I could say one more thing about maple businesses specifically. I think what we're often looking at with maple businesses, like the two main themes I hear are scale and whether to go retail or not and like leave, a butternut mountain or, a Bascom's or something, or at least to diversify. Both are super valid questions, and I think ones that are great to really dig into from multiple angles. I mean, maple is so specific to like, you start at one scale and you're always like, okay, now we want to get to this scale and we have this many taps and we need this new equipment to go with it. So working through, and like so many big investments have to go into maple. And so having the planning or an advisor with you kind of along the way to look at the return on investment and, what is the capacity for the sugar bush and like where would you get to in 5 to 10 years if you were to fully build it out or whatever it is a really, really helpful process is what we hear from people. Yeah, Carrie, did you have another question?
Yeah, so I guess I just wanted to make sure I'm clear on this. With the VHCV Farm and Forest Viability Program, when you say our advisors, are those advisors technically working with any of those 5 programs that you mentioned earlier?
Yep.
Okay, cool. And then from there, they might get looped into some of the other programs and offerings offered by those 5 groups.
Yeah, for example, like NOFA, if a maple producer was working with NOFA and if they were organic, that would be very logical, but also NOFA works with non-organic farms in our program as well. But then they might be interested in doing the Farm Beginnings course, which is for people who are starting off and want to build a bunch of skills, or they have a Journey Farmer program. they could do those regardless. They don't have to do viability through NOFA. Those programs exist anyway. As Dana was saying, UVM has tons of forest-based, maple-based, sap-based programs. Again, you could access those no matter who you're working with in the business planning. Intervale has a whole set of services. They really specialize in like beginning and new farmers along with the farm viability program. Land for Good is really the transfer succession. And the Center for an Ag Economy, they're up in the Northeast Kingdom, so they tend to focus on NEK. They also do a ton of like value added production. I often match maple people with them if they're really looking at doing their own products and going to market. They want to understand how to work with distribution or how to set up a farm store, recipe development. They specialize in that. But all our business advisors are, very well versed at general business planning, and then all of them kind of have their specialties as well. But most people do work with maple.
Great. Well, thank you so much. If there aren't any other questions, I am going to share the survey from the Franklin County NRCD. If folks could fill that out, we would greatly appreciate it. It's just a few questions about this webinar and kind of more information about if you're a maple producer or not. So yeah, I just put that in the chat now. There's a bunch of other resources being added. Thank you, Dana and Calley. I appreciate it. And yeah, great. I think there's no other questions, I will send a follow-up email to our participants with all of the information in the chat as well. And feel free to send me an email if you have any lingering questions as well.